Hello everyone, this is Chaos Destruction Dragon, and today I'm going to be making a deck profile of my Kagero, Overlord, the Great slash the End deck for Standard. So it's a primary Force Clan, and of course with the Force 2 markers out you can use either Force markers, but of course I primarily use Force 1 for this deck. But then sometimes you do use Force 2 if I go straight to the end and not use the Great. So that's just my recommendation. I usually would use Force 1 as Kagero is also a Vanguard centric deck. So yeah. So for my deck I run 4 regular Dragonic Overlords, so of course Soul Blast 1 plus 10k. And then if attack hits, you can counter blast 1, discard 2, restand it, and then try -1. You run this because this is of course your first ride target, and you're only good at least the main first ride target, so that's why you run 4. You could use for the ends, but the problem with the ends is that the end acts a lot more like a finisher rather than a first ride target. I mean, the end does have the skill does have a skill for first ride, but that requires four less cards, which Kagero does lack early game pressure, so you're gonna probably just have to guard a lot if you want to do that. So next, I played 3 the Greats. This is my second ride target, and so when placed, use Superior Call and Neil Flame, and at the end of the battle, it attacks. If you have a grade 3, counter blast 1, discard 2, stand it along with a Neil Flame. So, and drive -1. So this is my second main ride target, and I normally prefer using the Great over the N, because essentially the N is a triple attack Vanguard, so that's 5 attacks in 1 turn. But the Great also pretty much does the same thing, but with a +1, which is the Spirit called Neil Flame. And the Great also helps with extra rearguard pressure too, so extra 2 attacks with great rearguard with a powerful rearguard pressure as well. So that's just my preference, but it's up to you. And then of course, like I said, my finisher is the end, the triple attacker. So at the end of the battle, this card attacks, you can use one of the 2 following abilities. So if you have 4 or less cards, you can counter blast 1, soul blast 1, and stand it, but drive -1. And then the other part of its ability is, if you have a soul with Overlord, discard 3, stand it, and plus 10k, drive -1. So to me, this is a finisher, not really a first ride target. I mean, you could first ride and use that first skill that requires 4 or less cards, but that just requires you to guard a lot, but not really recommended. This is just to me a finisher. And and to me, if I do end up going to straight up to the end and not use the Great at all, I just use Force 2, because double attack at the end is actually, with a crit, is actually much more devastating in my opinion than 2 high power attacks in the early game at times. And even if your opponent's at 4 damage, that's actually very dangerous right there. So next for grade 2s, I run 4 Berserk Dragons. So of course, this is for retiring, counter blast 1, soul blast 1, retire one of your opponent's rear guards, and if it's placed on Vanguard, you draw a card. Now on rear guard, if it attacks a Vanguard, plus 3k. I mean, this deck does suffer some soul issues, and I have been thinking about playing Nehalem instead, or maybe Burnout, but the on place on Vanguard does help in many cases, and I do want some early game retiring as well, where Burnout can't really do that because it does require you to send back a grade 2 or higher, so it usually requires a later game. But Burnout is a decent option as well if you don't use Berserk Dragon, but I prefer Berserk Dragon, especially with that extra draw. Next, of course, because I'm playing the Great, you also play Neil Flame. Neil Flame, of course, when you're at the Great attack, plus 5k, and you can counter blast 2 to give it extra crit as well. So of course, if you're playing the Great, you have to play Neoflame because stand 2 units at once is of course really strong. And Neoflame is also good it becomes good fodder, and it helps with early game Kagero. Kagero's in for the early game, because Kagero is not, this deck is not really known for having early game aggression, so thanks to Neoflame, you can now get that early game aggression, especially use it as fodder for Guardian as well. So yeah. And then next I run 2 Dragon Full Armor Buster. Now this is the card where I said that it might actually have some soul issues. I only use 2. 1, I don't really like this card. Well, its ability is, if your opponent has no rearguard, plus 3k, so that it lasts for both turns. And when placed, you can Soul Blast 2, retire one of your opponent's rearguards, and then reveal the top 7 for an Overlord. But the reason why I run 2 is, obviously, that search is very helpful sometimes, especially when you're grade locked. So that's actually the main reason why I consider this card. But other than that, that Soul Blast 2 is, I don't really like that part of the costs. But I still run it because it does help in some ways. Next, I run, because I'm running the N, I'm also running the Cot. So its ability is Counter Blast 1, put it to Soul, and then your DN, when your DN attacks, it gives your DN the ability, when it attacks, your opponent must guard with 2 cards for each time. You must at least guard with at least 2 cards each time. So it does. So if you do play Force 2 and you're forced to do the early game, or if you just go straight up to the end or Force 2, this will be really devastating to make your opponent waste cards. Next, onto the grade 1s. I run 4 Sabo Dragon Newts, your main grade 1 ride target. So if attack hits on Vanguard, draw a card, and then if your opponent's rearguard's retired, you can retire it, draw a card, so it just helps you cycle the deck. Next, for countercharging, you run 4 Airmo. Similar to Sabo Dragon Newt, but a little better, is when your opponent's rearguard's retired, you can retire, draw a card, and countercharge 1, and if it boosts plus 3k, that boost plus 3k is actually pretty good as well. It's to hit magic numbers, so of course. Next, I run Crew Dragon. Crew Dragon gives an extra crit when boosting a grade 3, Counter Blast 1, put to Soul, give it extra crit for that battle, so that first attack on, like with the Great, if your opponent has like 3 or 4 damage, you can use its skill and it could be very devastating for that. Especially with the Neoflame Counter Blast 2 for extra crit can also be very devastating. So, and it also goes to Soul, which is also very important. Soul, it can be an issue for this deck, and because Soul can be an issue for this deck, I run Dragonite Burge. For some reason, many people do not consider running. So if your opponent has 4 rearguards, you can Counter Blast 1, put it to Soul, and then choose one of your opponent's rearguards retired, and plus 10k to one of your rearguards. This card, I don't really like the restriction of the 4, with the part where your opponent must have at least 4 rearguards, but it does go to Soul, and it's another retire option, and that plus 10k can be very helpful, especially when you're on Neoflame, with the Great and Neoflame. Neoflame's restance with a 20k without a force marker, so that's pretty good. And that's the main reason why I just consider it. And it's better than Bar, where you can't really use his ability at so many times, because Soul, and of course Starter, the draw 1 card. And then of course my triggers are 8 crits, and then the 4 draw PGs, and then of course the 4 heals. So that's the deck, and I hope you liked the video, and share, like, comment, do whatever you want, and make any suggestions if you want for changes.